My husband has an autoimmune disease. We've never done masking or anything. And if this was as serious as they say it is, he'd be dead 6 times over.
We are seeing verbal and physical disputes over mask wearing. You said it, there was an incident in Pembroke Park, and then just hours after that, there was an incident right here at Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood Market, and things got a little heated. A crime scene after what deputies say was a stabbing on a rideshare in Pembroke Park. A source telling Local 10 things came to blows after a dispute over a mask. Hours later, here at Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood, workers say this customer in red, refusing to cover up, went on a verbal rampage.
I politely asked him to put his mask on. He had it hanging. And he just started screaming and yelling.
I told him, I said, we're a small business and we still do require you to wear a mask, so can you please put on a mask?
This comes one day after a man shared this video with us, claiming he was attacked on a Metro mover because he initially did not have his face covered.
One of the women became violent by obstructing my phone out of my hands.
Face-offs over mask wearing seems to be a sign of the times.
It's disgusting.
What do you people mean?
This was a mask dispute at a Lowe's in March. But with some rules lifting and changing guidelines, it's easy not to know when to cover up. Under federal order, you do have to wear a mask on public transportation. Private businesses can make their own rules.
We're better off than we were a year ago at this time, and we'll be better off next year at this time. But in the meantime, we just need to respect one another.
Most private businesses like this one say they will work with you if you don't want to wear a mask. Like right here, they say they'll provide curbside service. By the way, as for that incident in Pembroke Park, that is still under investigation.
Alberta's legislature is temporarily suspending its spring session. Opposition leader Rachel Notley is calling the decision cowardly and says the premier is missing in action. But the House leader for the United Conservative Party says the move is necessary amid soaring COVID cases. The province is reporting 1,731 new cases today. It's the first time numbers dipped below 2,000 in 3 days, but testing was also down. An additional 2 people are in hospital, bringing the total number to 648. 155 of them are in ICU.
Cases of COVID-19 are surging in Alberta. The province continues to lead the country in per capita new infections. But in this province, it's also Rodeo Day. Hundreds of people showed up to this event near Bowden, Alberta today. No masks, no social distancing, no sense that this might be dangerous from those that came.
My husband has an autoimmune disease. We've never done masking or anything. And if this was as serious as they say it is, he'd be dead 6 times over. And I would have caught something by now.
Of course, none of this is actually allowed in Alberta. There's a public health order limiting the size of outdoor public gatherings. This weekend saw anti-mask rallies across the province. Some churches also protested attendance limits. Throughout it all, there's been little enforcement of those rules, a strategy some believe needs to change.
There needs to be a crackdown, and this cannot be tolerated if we're to be successful.
Excuse me?
Let's come in right now.
Early this morning, police and health authorities in Alberta cracked down on a repeat public health rule breaker.
How can any single one of you sleep at night with what you're doing right now?
Owner Chris Scott has defied multiple health and court orders to keep serving customers indoors.
Other business owners are following the law. You are not.
Today, enforcement officers locked his doors. A new multi-agency approach targeting those who refuse to comply, laid out at a news conference with the Premier and his ministers today. Tougher enforcement, including doubling fines, comes after months of criticism Alberta has been soft on rule breakers. And with more than a dozen MLAs speaking out against health measures, sending mixed messages.
So we have ended up with this sort of polarized moment in Alberta happening at the worst possible time.
The new restrictions, born out of fear ICUs will soon be overwhelmed. Today, the Premier said that could happen in a month if the current COVID trajectory doesn't change.
So we can manage the current load and what's coming at us, but not if the numbers continue to go up, particularly not if the growth of the spread of the virus accelerates.
Warning that wouldn't just impact COVID care, but anyone who needs medical services.
So I just encourage everybody to follow the science, follow the evidence, and follow the rules so that we can have a reasonable summer, so we can get everybody vaccinated and get those case numbers down so we can get out of this third wave and this pandemic as quickly as possible.
I am here at our large-scale vaccination clinic, and as you can see, we have lots of empty chairs.
For all the vaccine available to Americans, the supply of willing recipients is starting to dwindle.
This is going to be an uphill battle. I really kind of see us in this time crunch of trying to get people vaccinated before we see some of these other variants.
100 million people are now fully vaccinated. More than half the population has received at least one shot. And yet the rate of inoculation has slowed dramatically, down 25% in the last week to an average 2.5 million doses per day.
We have to get to that 75-80% of us fully vaccinated and really get this thing under control.
There's little room for error because 1/4 of Americans say they're vaccine hesitant and will not get the shot.
I do not plan on getting it unless I am forced.
To change the game, states are getting creative. In Louisiana, a Shots for Shots program is making its way through bars.
Well, the convenience is what spoke to me most today. The fact that it's literally 5 feet away from me. I work late nights. I've either just never found the time or just been too exhausted to go out.
Some NBA teams are planning to offer vaccines to fans during games. And mobile clinics are fanning out across communities to meet people where they are.
Getting as many Americans vaccinated as efficiently and equitably as possible is our path to returning to a more normal lifestyle.
The next 100 million shots will be much tougher to administer, but no less important. The U.S. still averages more than 50,000 new infections each day.
Each of us needs to look around in our communities, in our families, in our circle of friends, and ask people if they have a plan to get vaccinated.
The hope is that trusted local voices like doctors and pastors can help convince skeptics as communities do all they can to get shots into arms.
Through the tunnel, the first guests trickled into Disneyland after more than a year. And when they turned the corner to Main Street, USA...
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome home.
Many couldn't hold back their tears.
They're happy tears. Yes. I promise. They're happy tears.
The Beigel family got here at 2:30 this morning to wait outside the gate just to be some of the first inside the park.
They closed the gates right behind me, and I knew I needed to be back here the second I could.
Disneyland is everything to us.
It means the world to many.
My heart's racing. It's so amazing to see everybody back.
I love just being here, the atmosphere, the crowd, people are just happy.
Although the rides were on the minds of some, for most here, they say it's a feeling they craved, one that only comes from the happiest place on earth. After a year of solitude and fear, they say Disneyland makes it better.
I think it's definitely the cast members are a huge part of that magic. They're so happy and you can tell that they love their job.
Everyone's just had a tough year and we just need the magic just back in our lives, and this is it.
But the magic does look a little different. There are less crowds and less attractions, no parade or fireworks show, and although there are still Disney characters, photos are taken at a distance. But the spin, the thrill, and the charm that has been in Anaheim since 1955 is still thriving.
It's definitely a callback to our childhood. You know, we grew up with these stories, we grew up with these characters, and seeing them in some semblance real is amazing.
With the downtime, the 1922 carousel was refurbished, and even Snow White got a facelift as the ride is now brighter. And those lucky enough to be here for the first day after 412 days of darkness say they'll be wishing upon a star that the magic never ends again.
Everything is all better when you're here.
Last week, the new Indian variant was reported here in Ontario, and it didn't swim here, I can tell you that. In fact, we learned yesterday that 90% of average daily cases this week are variants of concern. The same variants that fueled our devastating third wave. And they got in because of weak border measures. I can't stress this enough. We will never get ahead of this virus if we can't keep these deadly new variants out of our country. The borders, land and air, their federal jurisdiction. And I assure you, if I had the power, I would close down Pearson Airport immediately. I would shut down the land border crossings to only those who are absolutely essential, because I would do everything in my power to stop a vaccine-resistant variant from getting into our country and bringing a fourth wave with it. Last night, I was on a call with my fellow premiers and the Prime Minister. I once again pleaded with them to do more, to tighten the airports, to bring in mandatory pre-departure testing for those flying into Ontario from other provinces. And most importantly, to close the massive loopholes at our land border with the United States by bringing in a mandatory hotel quarantine for those major land crossings. Because too many people are exploiting these weak measures at our land border to get around the hotel quarantine.
Amrinder Singh only spent a few months in Canada, but his family says he made the most of it. He left India behind with hopes of providing for his family back home.
He really wanted to give a very, very beautiful life to his daughters, his family, his wife.
Plans tragically cut short. He died on April 5th. The cause of death still unknown. His family has been trying to get his body back to India ever since.
Everything was ready. After a wait of 3 weeks, his body was finally ready to go to India on 24th April.
But just hours before the flight took off, it was cancelled, a consequence of Canada's recent ban on travel from the region.
We couldn't do anything for him. His body was already at the airport.
Now they're trying to find a new indirect flight and will have to secure all the permits again, a process that could take weeks.
It's a very hard time for the family.
Narinder Singh Walia is among the members of the Gurdwara who have lent a helping hand, coordinating with the funeral home to hopefully find an alternative.
It's our duty actually. We have to arrange something for them. So we help the people who needs. No? So that's why actually we take this decision.
The family says they wish Canada's travel ban didn't take effect so suddenly.
They should think about the people on the ground level.
As his wife and kids wait to see their loved one for the last time.
This has been a Dog in a Bonnet Productions.
2021. Off you go.